Okay, and that's new. Thank you all for joining. Hi, everyone. My name is Derek Scoville. I'm a Smart CPA here with Taleo, doing our second webinar on Smartsheet, kind of showing off different features and capabilities of the platform. So thank you all for being here. Today we're going to get into Data Shuttle. Here's how the next 20 minutes or so will be structured. We'll quickly touch on licensing and how users actually access the Data Shuttle tool. After that, we'll talk about some of the key features of Data Shuttle, and we'll get into some of the use cases and kind of the limitations of the tool before we get into the demo itself. The demo I've tried to structure in kind of a real world esque scenario, so I'll provide context for that. But if you have any questions well, if you have any questions at any point while I'm going through today, whether that be why I'm doing something, what the scenario is, any questions at all, please fire them in the chat. I can see the chat. So if it makes sense to answer it at the time, I will happily, or I may save it at the end. Again, we're going for about 20 minutes here, so we've got 5 to 10 minutes at the end for questions as well. Amazing. So Data Shuttle is an available add-on to any Smartsheet plan at the professional level or above. It can be purchased as a standalone add-on. You can just get Data Shuttle, or it can be part of the Advanced Work Management package. Advanced Work Management is as the name implies, very advanced and for very mature Smartsheet customers, and it includes, along with Data Shuttle, things like resource management and Control Center. But if all you need is Data Shuttle, you can absolutely just purchase that as an add-on. Access to Data Shuttle itself is controlled by the system administrator. You have to have editor level access to any sheets that you're looking to create a workflow for. So as long as you have editor access and the system administrator grants you access to Data Shuttle itself, you can create these workflows that we'll create today. Data Shuttle is the main, most used tool for transferring data between Smartsheet and other systems. Out of the box, it integrates with SharePoint, Google Drive, Box, and then there are available additional integrations for almost any tool, any enterprise level tool you can think of. This includes ServiceNow, SAP, Workday, anywhere, almost anywhere that you're storing data or looking to push data from Smartsheet. These integrations exist, so it's a super versatile and well built out tool. No coding is required. Within the UI of Data Shuttle, you control filtering, you control column mapping, you control destination without any scripting required. So it's a fairly easy tool to use, and I hope to show that in today's demo. Last point, kind of as we touched on earlier, Data Shuttle is its own separate thing within the platform. It has a dedicated URL, and again, as we touched on, it has its own uh, set of permissions for who can actually access it. Any within the base or main Smartsheet instance, you can't take any actions related to Data Shuttle other than viewing the sheets themselves. But for actually pulling and pushing data, you have to go to that dedicated URL, and specific permissions related to Data Shuttle have to be created and set up. Data Shuttle really excels for regular and or scheduled imports and exports of data. When I was down in Seattle, I chatted with a gentleman from Smartsheets, and he put it really smartly. He said, Data Shuttle is used for importing 10,000 rows daily. It's not used for doing a million rows once. There are other kind of more robust tools and processes for true data migrations. It is not a data migration tool, but it allows for the consistent setup flow of data within, out of, or actually, into, out of, or between Smartsheet sheets. On that right-hand side, you can see kind of some of the differences between upload and offload workflows. One feature that I want to highlight is that we can use these upload workflows to change drop-down choices within sheets. So we can pull data from a sheet and use it to create the drop down choices within a different sheet. And I'll show an example of that during the demo. Amazing. So here's the scenario and kind of context through which I'll be presenting this demo. Again, if you have any questions, please let me know. But I'm a purchaser for a retail company. My department uses Smartsheet to track purchases and keep track of our vendor relations, but our actual live inventory is being tracked in Google Drive. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a workflow to import that inventory data. We're then going to create another workflow that's going to take all of our list of purchases and push that out to Google Drive just for redundancy and visibility. And then the third workflow we'll create will be that update dropdowns workflow that I mentioned in the previous slide. So that is what we're doing and why we're doing it. This is kind of a diagram just showing what kind of the flow of data and again the scenario through which I'm presenting today. The three different workflows are shown here with again the flow of data shown here. Without further ado, let's build the first workflow. This is the Data Shuttle UI. Here we can see all of the workflows that we have access to. We can see when they were last run, what type they are. Additionally, you can't see them here because I don't have these scheduled to go automatically. But if they're triggered on a certain date or when they're triggered, you can see a little icon here. And we'll see that in a second. The first workflow we're going to create is an upload workflow. This is going to be, again, pulling that inventory data out of Google Drive and into Smartsheet. So our source of data is Google Drive. It's going to be this account. And we'll pick this folder. And I'm going to choose this live inventory tracker. This will be where I'm getting the data. Amazing. This file has headers. In Excel, we do the first row as the headers, but it is a row versus in Smartsheet, we actually designate those headers not as a row. It's a column header. So you just have to keep track of that the two systems do that slightly differently. Our target is a sheet in Smartsheets, and it's going to be our inventory tracker within Smartsheets. There's a few different actions we can take here. We can replace the entire rows and effectively just create a new version of our Smartsheet file every time. We don't want to do this. What this merge data into the target based on a key column value, what that allows us to do is actually keep track of separate data. So for example, the trigger for when we'll want to order a restock, we don't need to keep that in the live inventory sheet. But if we merge the data, it means that we can merge it based on what item it is and kind of keep track of things in different places while using the same data. Going to update rows as they change in the source file. I don't need to delete them. And then we'll add if anything gets added on the other sheet, it will be added here. Cool. We can filter our data. For our purposes today, in none of the workflows, I need to filter it. But if you needed to filter by column or by a certain condition, you can write that here. Amazing. So this is where we're doing our field mapping, or I should say our column mapping would be a little bit more accurate. Because I've set up the sheets effectively identically between the two platforms, it does it automatically for me, which is super easy. The only thing we need to select is this unique identifier column. And this is again going to be how Smartsheet decides how the data is merged, right? I'm going to do it by the product. Awesome. So I'd like to run this workflow as often as possible, 24 hours a day, just so my purchasers always have the most up-to-date data, and that we don't need real-time data for the purchasers, but we'd like it to be as up-to-date as possible. So I'm going to run it every day. I'm going to run it every 15 minutes, 24 hours a day. This is as often as we can run it, and you can absolutely run it every 15 minutes, 7 days a week. So sharing settings. All this, we're by default the workflow manager because we created it. We can designate other workflow managers who have the ability to edit these workflows. What this box is telling us is that in order to be a manager of this workflow, they need to have read access on our source in Google Drive and edit or write level permissions on our source or on our destination, I should say, in Smartsheet. I'll give it a name. I'm going to call this inventory upload. Lovely. So let's take a look at how that looks. So this is our current version of it. Let's go ahead. Well, we have this. So then in Excel, this is our source. Let's change a couple of these to 0. I'm just going to edit these so that they stand out a little more. Do that. Lovely. And now let's run this workflow. With a bit of luck, it should work automatically. It's a good sign. It's already like that. Give Smartsheet a couple seconds to pull that data in. Lovely. So you can see this has been updated to 0. This was the row that we edited. This need reorder has been automatically checked and the row has been highlighted. So this has all taken place without any human input. Additionally, what will happen is I've created a quick workflow to notify, in this case me, or it could be any purchaser, whenever an item needs to be restocked. So in a couple seconds, I'll get an email in my inbox with that row that has been changed to needing to be restocked. And again, this is all happening without any human involvement. This is all automated. Lovely. So that is this workflow created. We're now pulling data every 15 minutes from Google Drive into Smartsheet, which is allowing our purchasers to be automatically notified when an item needs to be restocked. Let's build the second one. We're now going to make that purchase. We're going to push it off back out to Google Drive. This is our purchases table, just so everyone is aware. Let's create an offload. So now our source is Smartsheets. It is our purchases tracker. And our target location is Google Drive. We're pushing out now. Select this. Whenever we select Google Drive, it allows us to either push it just directly to the Google Drive or we can select a specific folder. I'll select our webinar folder and I'll call it purchases. I prefer an Excel file. I will add headers, again, going back to that distinction between Smartsheet. When we add headers, this means the column headers in Smartsheet will appear on the first row of the Excel file. Just a little bit easier to read. Don't need filters. This is just telling us how it will be mapped, what the column headers will be. We could delete this. So if we only wanted to export a couple of these rows, or if we didn't want to export a couple of the rows, we can easily delete them and remove it. We can also reorder them. So if we want to put certain rows first, product name up at the top, for example. I'll still run this every day, but not nearly as often. We'll say just at 2 a.m. every day. We'll create a copy of this purchases data, and in Google Drive, the previous version will be automatically removed. So we're just pushing the most recent version every day out to Google Drive for visibility and redundancy. Same thing with the workflow managers, telling us the permissions we need. And I'll call this purchases offload. Amazing. So here you can see purchases.xlsx does not exist. Go ahead and run that and give this a second. So you can see that Excel file was automatically created and pushed to Google Drive. We have our column headers, just a copy of this data for if we need to do anything within Google Drive, or if anyone who didn't have our, or who, say, for example, was outside of our team needed to view this data, it's been pushed out. Amazing. So that's the second workflow we've created. The last one we're going to do is On this contacts list sheet, what I want to do is be able to keep track of who we're in touch with from the specific vendors. But I want this list of vendors to be accurate. I don't want it to be cluttered, and I don't want it to have to be manually uh, like updated or maintained. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to write two mini workflows in order to automatically update this list of vendors from whoever we're purchasing from. Cool. So let's go ahead and just create a new vendor just for this, right? Let's call this webinar test vendor. Save that. So now if I wanted to create a contact associated with that, it's not going to appear here. And what we're going to do is we're going to make it automatically pull over here. Oops. Awesome. So as I said, we have to create two workflows for that. The first workflow we're going to create is just going to export the list of vendors. So we're going to get that from the purchases tracker. I want to create it as a Smartsheet attachment. So this isn't leaving Smartsheet. And I'd like to attach it to the contacts list. The exported file will be called vendors as a CSV. And I don't need to add headers. All that will do is make it so that one of the options we can choose is the column header. We don't need that. We just need the list of vendors. Need to filter. So here's a great example of when we actually only need one of these columns, right? We're going to export every unique value in the vendor name column, not including the header. So just a list of unique vendors. I'll run this at the same time, 2 a.m. Perfect. And we'll call this vendors list offload. Save. Let's run this. So what that looks like, again, we haven't fully completed what we're going to do, but what that has done is it automatically creates this vendors.csv file and attaches it to the contacts list sheet. The old version is replaced every time. You can see this V27. So Smartsheet supports version history if you want to go back and see your list of vendors over time. But it's not like you have to sort through 100 different versions of it. It automatically will use and replace the newest version of it. So now what we're going to do, the last step is we're going to take that CSV file and we're going to use it to change the drop downs in this file. Awesome. Source location is a Smartsheet attachment. It's that vendors.csv. We're going to pull it from the contacts list. If you were doing this, if you had multiple attachments or if you were uploading multiple attachments at different times, you could do it by specifically name. For our purposes, we can keep it super simple and do the most recent file. And Smartsheet tells you when it's found it. It automatically says, yep, this file exists, we can use it. It doesn't have headers, and it's a CSV. My target is a sheet in Smartsheets. It's the contacts list, and we're going to select the update drop-down choices for the selected columns, and we select those columns in the next step. So here we can see vendor name. I want to map column 1, that's all of our list of vendors, to our vendor name field. Only when our source is a Smartsheet attachment do we get this option to run on attachment. What this means is that we don't have to guess how long the previous workflow will take and say schedule this one half an hour out or an hour out. This workflow is just automatically triggered when a new version of the attachment is added. So it means that whenever the file is added, if that previous workflow takes a minute or 20 minutes, this workflow immediately kicks in right after. So it's super useful. Same things, name workflow, vendor list upload. Lovely. So let's run this and let's see if everything works within our set amount of time. Perfect. So this workflow has run successfully. The new version of the CSV is now on the contacts list file. This will trigger within a couple seconds. I'll just run it automatically. or sorry, I should say run it manually. It's in progress, and we'll just refresh this sheet. Let's see, going through it. There we go. Webinar test vendor has been added. You can see we're now on version 29 of the CSV. I chose to run those workflows manually, but this process would have happened um, purely automatically in the background without any human intervention. We've exported the list of all our vendors, and we've taken that list and uploaded it to this sheet where we can now choose any of our active vendors to build a contact around. Amazing. That concludes